Here, everyone. We're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes and give everyone a chance to join in, those that will be, and then we'll get you started here in just a moment. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to week 4. Can you believe our last week of the course? Wow, it's been a long journey, right? But you're so close. You're so close to being finished. Don't lose heart just yet. We will get through this together. Okay, I was just finishing up some grading for the week 3 pieces, and I know that some of you are just you're barely treading water because you're trying to juggle everything. You're trying to juggle your family, your job, and school. So I just want to be a voice that encourages you here that you can do this. Okay, this is our last week. This is the time to put in the extra hustle, and you can do it. You can really see the finish line. Okay, you have to know a little bit about Dr. May. I love to give partial credit. I love to see your thought process and what you're thinking. And even if it's not perfect, Lord knows I'm not, I love to give some partial credit. Now, you have to understand though, I can't give partial credit if there's nothing submitted. So please, please make your focus getting something turned in for those assignments, getting something turned in for the assessments. On the assessment, put something for the essay. I love to give some points for it, but I can't do that if it's completely blank. So don't leave it blank. Put something. Get your ideas down there. Lots and lots of resources if you get stuck. Like, I don't really know how to do the assignment. I have a video for each assignment. It kind of walks you through completing it. If you need one of those, send me a message, a Canvas message, an email, or a phone, text me. Either any of those work for me. So let's get you the help that you need because I want to see you cross the finish line. That's my goal. That's my goal for sure. So you can see we are in week 4, right? You're doing so much learning that's going to help you bridge that gap there to get to success. So as promised, I'm going to pause here with the live lecture quiz. I will give them again at the end. Take just a moment and jot those down. All right, so about 60 more seconds here. Make sure you got all of those for the live lecture quiz. Very important. Those are always good ones to be looking at as we get into the live lecture. So something to think about, and I've put this in some of the feedback comments, is just make sure that when you take notes through the live lecture, you're focusing on the vocabulary. It's the biggest part of the assessment that I see. So make sure, and I have some little notes here and there to show you, hey, this is important for the vocabulary. So I hope that that helps you as we're moving through the topics for today. So let's take a look. We are going to evaluate business articles. That's the crux of this week. That's the focus, is to evaluate business articles to determine if the data is used appropriately. We're also going to talk about logic and reasoning for business decisions. And we're going to talk about how do we work with limited resources. So don't forget, you've got a lot of little parts for this week. I'm going to do my best to keep the gradebook updated for your assignment and assessment and live lecture quiz, your career integration, and your daily checkpoints. I will be honest, the 2 discussions for week 4, I will not be able to grade those until next Monday. But I will try to keep the gradebook as updated as possible throughout the week so that you're constantly aware of what your grade can or actually is at the moment. So keep that in mind as you're working this week. I think that will help you focus. What exactly do you need to do? Obviously, the assignment is worth the most points in this week. So if I had to put them in order of preference to get the most bang for my buck, especially if I'm running down to the last minute, I know that assignment takes time, but it is worth the most points. And so I would encourage you to do that first. Then your assessment is your next biggest one. And then your 2 discussions, and then the live lecture quiz. If I had to put them in order of point values, that's where I would put my time and effort. The sooner you get them in, the sooner we get them graded, the sooner you are able to kind of mark this off on your to-do list. Something to think about, I know many of you will be starting a new class next Monday. Maybe you need a few days off. Try to finish up everything by Friday. You'll send me a message. I'll be glad to jump in there and get it all graded and send it back to, and then get you some feedback. That way you can know if there's anything you needed to fix. But then you can kind of rest and relax Saturday and Sunday. Okay, something also to mention about plagiarism. So remember that you need to be using your own words. So think about using a summary. Summarize what you're reading in an article. If you're not going to summarize, then be sure and use quotation marks to mark your quotes so that others are able to see that, hey, these aren't my exact words. These are the words of someone else, and I'm clearly giving them credit. I think that's important. All right, let's take a moment and look at the business cycle. And I'm going to pull this up in a separate window. Give me just a moment, and I'll share that window with you, of course. Wow. It's great to see that our human emotions are a huge factor in the business cycle and how people feel comfortable or not comfortable with some of the processes and how they spend their money. So I love that video of Khan Academy. I'm a huge fan of Khan Academy. If you haven't caught on to that yet, I'm a huge fan. I think there's a lot to be learned there. So we have a process that we go through in order to make decisions. I love the visual of defining, identifying, defining, and selecting. So first we define the problem. We identify possible options. And then we select the best alternative. So it's define the problem. Again, that visual, define the problem, identify potential solutions. Some people call that the brainstorming step. And then select the best alternative. Have you ever used those processes in your, maybe not your business life, but your personal life? Have you had to look at making a decision and you had to define what the problem was? Like, what is it exactly we're trying to do here? And then you start researching. You identify any potential solutions. And then finally, you select the one you think that's going to best serve you and possibly your family. Here's a good point with the week 4 vocabulary. This graph is called the social production possibilities frontier. It lets us know that broader social good can emerge from selfish individual actions. So a good one to have for your assessment this week. Choices outside the personal productions frontier are unattainable, and choices inside the personal production possibilities frontier are wasteful. We all know behavior involves trade-offs, where individuals in society must give up something that they desire to obtain things that they desire more. So sometimes we have to give up something that we really would like in order to get something we would like even more. And that is the production possibilities frontier. Give you just a moment to make sure you get that one. Marginal analysis. This is where you compare the benefits and costs of choosing a little more or a little less of a good. So we already know we're going to spend the money on a particular product, process, piece of equipment. Let's say my company needs to buy a copier. We've already decided we're going to purchase a copier for the office. The marginal analysis would then look at, okay, what are the benefits of choosing a copier that's a little bit better or a little bit more than what we actually functionally need at a minimum? That's our marginal analysis. And important factors are sunk costs, and that are costs in the past that we cannot recover. But we all know we should make decisions based on the future. What's going to happen in the future? What are our sales going to look like moving forward? Yes, there's a little bit of our data that we want to look at the past. What did we do in the last 6 months? But really, we need to get a feel for what's going to happen in the future. Some critics of Robert's rules used for decision making say The process can provide divisions within an organization. And the process can harm group member relationships. I think there's an opportunity for quality leadership to avoid this type of dilemma. However, without proper leadership, divisions are going to occur. Now, opportunity costs. It's a decision rule has a range of possibilities, such as unanimous agreement, simple majority, and executive committee decisions where no one is completely satisfied with the decision, but everyone must compromise something. Boy, does that happen more times than not, right? Everybody ends up giving up a little something for the greater good. And the greater good may be what, in the end is what we're all really after, or maybe we get something that we really wanted a little bit more. Maybe we give up wearing jeans on Fridays in order to get a half day once a month off. It's just an idea, right? Okay, opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. So if I decide to purchase this copier, is there a potential gain I could have had by purchasing a different copier? Here's an example. You spend time and money going to the Broadway show Hamilton. You cannot spend that time at home reading a book. And you can't spend the money on weekly pumpkin spice lattes, right? It's an opportunity cost. Definitely something we have to consider, because in saying yes to one thing, we are automatically saying no to something else. So good business vocabulary definitely wants you to get the definition again of the opportunity cost was the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. Another definition, another spin-off of that is a benefit, profit, or value of something that must be given up to acquire or achieve something. Every action or choice or decision has an associated opportunity cost. By purchasing one copier, I am saying that we might not have the money to do lunch for everyone on Friday or lunch for our guests, because that money is going to be tied up in the purchase of a copier. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing. We just have to recognize that every decision has an associated opportunity cost. I think the last bullet here is important. Opportunity costs are fundamental costs. They're basic. And they're very important in computing the cost-benefit analysis of a project. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the difference between agreement and consent. So agreement is a negotiated, typically legal, binding arrangement between parties. Consent is simply permission for something to happen. So what's the big difference between the two? Unanimity in consensus decision making is achieved when the entire group consents to a decision. You gave permission for something to happen. Giving consent does not mean that it was the proposal was the first choice. It was the one we wanted all along, right? But the group members can present their vote to a proposal, and they can choose to cooperate with the direction of the group. May not have been your first choice to paint the employee break room pink, right? But we voted and we gave our consent, even though it was not our first choice. All right, so we talked about marginal analysis being the comparing of the benefits and costs of choosing a little bit more or a little bit less of the good. We didn't mention the law of diminishing marginal utility. This is when a person increases the consumption of a project or product while keeping consumption of other products constant. Some costs we discussed were the costs in the past that cannot be recovered. While some costs are in the past, we want to keep our eyes looking forward to make decisions based on what will happen in the future. And finally, the comparative advantage. When a country can produce a good at a lower opportunity cost than another country. So good vocabulary. Remember always that our assessments are focused on the vocabulary. All right, so here's our 6 steps to making rational decisions. Give you just a moment to get those in your notes. All right, we're going to define the situation and the desired outcome. So we've identified the problem and we know what we would like to be fixed. Then we research and identify the options. What could we do? Then we look at the pros and cons of each alternative. We compare and contrast them. If we go with this copier, what are the perks? What are we giving up? Then we make a decision. We choose one of the options that we researched. But we don't stop there. We don't stop just with our choice. Now we say, okay, how are we going to implement this? How are we going to bring this about in our business? And then we've got to evaluate, did it work? All right. When we make decisions, you can kind of think of it like a triangle. These 3 points of the triangle are interrelated steps. And don't think that one step is more important than the others. All of them are important. And these, of course, will help you become a more efficient and effective problem solver, not only in your business, but also in your personal decisions. Okay, consensus decisions. Remember that consensus decisions are a way to make sure everybody has a say. Many times this will generate energy in your business, and it will quickly move everyone to a decision because they can all buy in and support it. This can take less than an hour. But the key to reaching a final decision is for us to be sure that we as leaders are checking for agreement at the beginning and ending of each step. It's a series of small agreements instead of just thinking of it as one agreement. So how do you do that? Well, you frame the decision. Let's agree on what it is we're trying to decide. You may use a statement like, should we open a new branch in another city? The decision statement then could be, let's decide on the best location for our new branch. Then we would generate alternatives. This is where you want every idea possible. Try not to evaluate whether the option or alternative is valid or will it work or any of that. This is not the time to evaluate. It's just that I like to think of this as I'm trying to get ideas in the pot, right? Trying to get all of my ideas out there so that we can come up with something that might work. We in this step are just trying to get all the possibilities. Step 3, take some time to clarify the alternatives that you've selected. Again, this is not the time we're trying to evaluate an idea. We're not trying to agree or disagree. This is where we just want to get the information out to everyone so that they know what it is we would like. We are trying all these alternatives. What are all the details associated with them? Then step 4, this is where you want to start narrowing down your ideas. So if you have 30 ideas, this is where you want to narrow it down to 10. Cut it by a third. Well, I shouldn't say not by a third. Cut it down to 1/3 of its original size. Remember, at this step, you're not actually making a decision. You are just cutting out some of the possibilities, narrowing down to what are your favorite few. Then number 5, you're going to keep and discard. Start with the alternative that has the most votes and say, it looks like this one got the most votes. How about if this one stays for now? If everyone agrees, we circle it and move on. Then go to the next alternative with no votes or the least amount. And so you're going through the alternatives as either keep or get rid of. Give the people that feel strongly about it, ask them why. Give them time to explain and then move on to the next alternative to evaluate it. It does sound like it's a long process, but actually, if with good leadership, you can move through quickly the decisions of keep or let go, based on the number of votes, it forces people in the group to focus on the ones that are the most viable. All right, number 6, summarize the decisions. And decide who's going to do what, okay? So this is where you're gonna really find out people's commitment. When you finally get to this step, usually commitment and energy is very high from people. They're ready to sign up to do something about it. Okay, I love this part. It says if all of a sudden the room goes quiet, you missed a step in the process. Now don't forget, consensus building is very hard work on the leader. Okay, you're gonna feel like you're keeping 20 plates spinning all at the same time. But the key here is to being open to alternatives. Remember, you're trying to build consensus with your team, not get your idea to pass. You're wanting buy-in from your people. All right, so here's a couple of ways that, I should say 3 ways that businesses make mistakes. So number 1, it just flat out ignoring the statistics. We don't pay attention to what it is we have and the data we have. Number 2, not taking the time to do the research that's necessary to make a good informed decision by researching the alternatives. What are the options? And then finally, ignoring the probability that risk is involved. I can say I've probably been guilty of all 3 of them. And yet we have, you know, we live through it, right? We live and learn. And so now, because I've done all 3 of these, I'm more aware moving forward that these are things I have to be on the guard against. Okay, so how do we stand guard against ignoring the statistics? Well, we've got to have some numbers to back up any assumption or projections I make. I've got to be able to back it up with the numbers. Any well-prepared business professional is going to check their numbers against the industry data or third party. So they're going to want to compare, is my business normal, right? Because I'm going to compare it to other businesses like mine or other businesses in my industry. How do I stand guard against failing to do the research? Well, you have to learn everything you can about your business and your industry. I'm a huge reader. So this year I've committed to reading several books to help me learn more about my business, about my industry, how do I grow, how do I take care of customers and clients. So that's how I learn. That may not be how you learn. You may learn by going to conferences. You may learn by watching speakers. I tried a little bit of that. It really wasn't my method of learning, but it might be yours. The idea is that you're learning, okay? And then number 2, research your customers' purchasing habits. What is it that they're purchasing consistently? What are their motivations? What are their fears? Have a good idea and research your competitor. What are they doing well? What are they doing? How are they doing that? And then finally, research overall market trends so you can know what's coming. Maybe your business gets deathly quiet in the summer months. You need to know that so that you're not caught off guard, so that you can make wise business decisions on behalf of not only your customers, but also your employees. How do we stand guard against ignoring the probability that risk is involved? Well, there's no such thing as a no-risk business. Every business has risk. We have to stand guard against it so that we can make good decisions. Be prepared for questions to come from your clients, your customers, and your investors. You need to be prepared with an answer. And then be able to tell them when you're working with them how you're going to minimize the risks. All right. How do we hedge against not learning from failure? Well, we have to create an environment in our business where it's safe for employees to fail without judgment. Yes, we want our employees to be successful. We want them to make money for our business instead of losing money for our business. That you as a business leader have to take a we are all learning kind of approach, okay? So you have a brand new employee who makes a mistake and you belittle them in front of everyone, you've probably set the tone to let everyone know that mistakes are not allowed. You also have to learn from failure, you're gonna have to utilize teamwork. Think outside the box and avoid creating same mistakes over and over again. So this week, you're going to have your first discussion is going to be about limited resources. How do we make decisions when resources are limited? I would love to hear your research as you dig into this one. Don't forget, this week we are evaluating business articles. You've got a great opportunity with the assignment this week. You're looking at a particular article and you're going to analyze how decisions were made. Don't forget, let me pause here with the live lecture quiz. Want to make sure you get these answers. I'm going to pause just a minute or two. So you've got those. All right, I hope that helps you with this week's live lecture quiz. Don't forget, you've got your week 4 assignments, 2 discussions, an assignment. You are creating a PowerPoint. You've got an assessment that focuses on the vocabulary, live lecture quiz, career integration, and last but certainly not least, your daily checkpoints. Let's finish this course strong. And let me know if you have any questions or anything I can help with. I would love the opportunity to help in any way that I can. So thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great week. Bye for now.